They say that in the beginning, there was nothing. But in the concrete projects of Rosengård, there wasn't just nothing. There was hunger. There was a sound of police sirens. And there was a boy who decided that if the world wasn't going to give him a seat at the table, he would simply become the table. Most athletes want to be liked. Some want to be respected. But Zlatan Ibrahimović, Zlatan wanted to be a god. But a god isn't born in a palace. A god is forged in the fire of being an outsider. This isn't just a story about football. This is the saga of a child of refugees who used his pain to build a shield so thick the world started calling it a god complex. Malmö, Sweden, 1981. To the outside world, Sweden is a socialist utopia. But if you were an immigrant in the Rosengård district, it was a different world. Zlatan's father, Shefik, was a Bosnian Muslim. His mother, Julka, was a Croatian Catholic. They didn't come to Sweden for the scenery. They came to survive. But the trauma of the Balkans followed them. Zlatan's childhood wasn't filled with bedtime stories. It was filled with the sound of his father drinking to forget a war back home, and the sight of a mother working herself to the bone cleaning houses for people who didn't know her name. He once said, "My father was never there. I looked after myself. Maybe it did hurt. I can't really tell." That "I can't tell" is where the legend begins. When you are a child and there is no food in the fridge, literally nothing but beer, you have two choices. You can wither away or you can become a predator. Zlatan became a thief, not for the money, but for the thrill. He stole bikes to get to training. He stole to feel like he had control. He was the kid with the big nose, the lisp, and the wrong accent. He was the outsider in a country that valued jantellagen, the law that says you should never think you're better than anyone else. Zlatan looked at that law and spat on it. By the time he reached the Malmö FF Academy, Zlatan was already a problem. He didn't play like a Swedish player. He played like a kid from the streets of Rio or the cages of Paris. He did stepovers when he should have passed. He yelled at his teammates. The parents of the other kids, the proper Swedish kids, actually started a petition. They literally signed a paper asking the club to kick Zlatan out. Think about that. You're a teenager, you're poor, you're an immigrant, and the adults in the room are banding together to tell you that you don't belong. Most kids would break. They would try to fit in. They would quiet down. But Zlatan? He realized that if they hated him for being himself, then being himself was his greatest weapon. He didn't want their love anymore. He wanted their submission. In 2001, Ajax, the great talent factory of Europe, bought him for a record fee. But Amsterdam wasn't ready for Zlatan. He was benched. He was criticized. The Dutch media called him a waste of money. Then he met the man who would change his life forever. A man just as loud, just as round, and just as aggressive as he was, Mino Raiola. Their first meeting is legendary. Zlatan showed up in a fancy suit, driving a Porsche, expecting a formal dinner. Raiola showed up in a t-shirt, ordered enough pasta for 5 people, and looked Zlatan in the eye. Raiola said, "You think you're the best? Your stats are trash. Look at Shevchenko. Look at Inzaghi. They score goals. You just do tricks. Sell your cars. Sell your watches. Train 3 times as hard, or I'll sell you to a mid-table club tomorrow." For the first time, someone had called Zlatan's bluff, and for the first time, Zlatan listened. This wasn't a goal, it was a statement. It was Zlatan telling the world, "I am not a project anymore, I am the finished product." If Ajax taught him how to play, Italy taught him how to kill. Fabio Capello, the legendary Juventus manager, didn't care about stepovers. He saw Zlatan and told him, "I'm going to beat the Ajax out of you." Every day, Capello made Zlatan stand in front of a goal and watch videos of Marco van Basten. He made him take 100 shots after every training session. No tricks, just goals. When the ship started sinking at Juventus, Zlatan didn't stay to drown. Some called it disloyalty. Zlatan called it destiny. He moved to Inter Milan. This is where the God complex shifted from a defense mechanism into a brand. He won 3 consecutive Serie A titles. He became the highest paid player in the world. He was the king of Italy. But there was one man he couldn't conquer, one trophy he couldn't touch, the Champions League. And that hunger led him to the greatest mistake of his career. Barcelona in 2009 was the perfect team. Pep Guardiola was the philosopher. Lionel Messi was the golden boy. Everything was about the system. Everything was about tiki-taka. Zlatan wasn't a system player. Zlatan was the system. The tension started almost immediately. Pep wanted Zlatan to stay in the box. He wanted him to be quiet. He wanted him to be a good boy. Zlatan's famous quote sums it up. "You bought a Ferrari, but you are driving it like a Fiat." To Zlatan, Pep wasn't a genius. He was a coward who wouldn't look him in the eye. After a Champions League loss to Inter Milan, Zlatan finally snapped. He screamed at Pep in the dressing room, "You have no balls. You are shitting yourself in front of Jose Mourinho." The marriage was over. Zlatan had failed in the eyes of the world. He was uncoachable. He was toxic. But a lion doesn't care about the opinions of sheep. He returned to Milan and immediately won another league title. He had found a home where they embraced the ego. But then, the money called. Paris Saint-Germain was a club with a lot of money, but no history. They needed a soul. They needed a symbol. They needed a god. Zlatan didn't just play for PSG. He became PSG. For 4 years, he treated the French league like his personal playground. "France is a shit country," he once said after a bad refereeing decision. "What did I give my wife for her birthday? Nothing. She already has Zlatan." The media loved to hate him, but while they were talking, he was scoring. 156 goals in 180 games. He won 12 trophies in 4 years. He left with the ultimate parting shot. "I came like a king, I left like a legend." If you want to understand the God complex, you have to watch this goal. The ball is 30 yards out. It's 10 feet in the air. Any other player in history waits for it to drop. Any other player tries to control it. The ball loops higher and higher over the English defenders and into the net. The commentator goes silent. The England players just stand there. Zlatan takes off his shirt. He doesn't look surprised. He looks like he's saying, "Of course I did that. I'm Zlatan." That goal won the Puskas Award. It broke the internet before that was a phrase. It was the moment the God complex became undeniable. "He can't handle the pace," they said. "He's a finished man," they said. Zlatan's response? "I won't be the king of Manchester. I will be the god of Manchester." In his first season, at 35 years old, he scored 28 goals. He won the Europa League. He was the main man. Until the knee snapped. Doctors said he'd be out for a year. Some said he'd never walk without a limp. 7 months later, he was back on the pitch. When a journalist asked how he recovered so fast, Zlatan didn't talk about physical therapy. He didn't talk about medicine. He said, "Lions don't recover like humans." In 2018, the world thought Zlatan was going to the MLS to retire, to collect a paycheck and play golf. His debut for the LA Galaxy is the greatest 20 minutes in the history of American sports. He doesn't even look at the goal, he just hits it. He then scores the winner in the final minutes. In his post-game interview, he says 4 words that define his entire existence. They wanted Zlatan. I gave them Zlatan. He wasn't there to play soccer. He was there to colonize a continent. Zlatan is 38 years old. He could have stayed in LA. He could have retired a hero. But he heard his old home was burning. He didn't return to Milan as a player. He returned as a general. He walked into a locker room of young, scared players and told them, "If you want to win, follow me. If you don't, leave." For 6 months, he played with an ACL. He couldn't sleep from the pain, but he refused to quit. Why? Because he had promised the fans a trophy. He did it. At 40 years old, he dragged a broken club back to the top of the mountain. It was his masterpiece, the final proof that the God complex wasn't just talk. It was a fuel that could burn through even the limits of biology. Every story has an end, even for a god. In a world that tried to box him in, as an immigrant, as a thief,
as an arrogant problem child. Zlatan Ibrahimović spent 25 years proving that you are whoever you say you are. He took the pain of a hungry childhood and turned it into a shield. He took the insults of the elite and turned them into his throne. The first time I came here, you gave me happiness. The second time, you gave me love. I want to thank my family, and my second family, the players. I will be a Milanista for life. It's time to say goodbye to football, but not to you. Zlatan didn't just play the game. He conquered the narrative. He taught a generation of kids that it's okay to be different. It's okay to be loud. It's okay to believe you are a god when the world tells you you're nothing. Because in the end, there are many kings, there are many legends, but there is only one Zlatan.